So there's over 100 different species of lemur, and these guys that we have here are ring-tailed lemurs. Now all lemurs come from Madagascar, but these were one of the first to make it over to Madagascar when it broke off from Africa. Now the Latin name for these guys is lemur cata, and that's in reference to their cat-like appearance and how agile they are. Now these guys are slightly different to other types of lemurs because they like to spend the majority of their time on the ground, and that's where their stripy tails come in handy. So the tails are actually longer than the bodies, and the black and white stripes on the tail are finished off with a black tip. So what they'll do is when they're exploring Madagascar, they'll stick the tails in the air, and that's how they help keep the troop together. Now males will also use the tails in stink fights when they're competing for the females during breeding season. The males also have spurs on their scent glands, which allows them to scratch their markings into the tree bark and the scent just to establish their territory. Now these guys, because they're from Madagascar, they're used to a lot of sunlight. So the black around their eyes is natural sunglasses, and that helps to protect their face from the hot Madagascar sun. And they also are sun worshippers by nature. So some parts of Madagascar where these lemurs reside, it can become quite cold overnight. So what they'll do is then the first thing in the morning, it's very important for them to then sunbathe and warm themselves up for the rest of the day. And you'll often find them here at Sewerby. They love to sit on the roof and catch all the rays. So in the wild, the typical diet consists of fruits, nuts, seeds and leaves. Now the favourite food is the tamarind leaves, and when they're in abundance that will form the majority of their diet. Here at Sewerby we feed them a variety of fruit and veg, mainly towards the veg just because it's not as high in sugar as what they naturally pick off the trees in the wild. And then we also give them seeds and primate pellets. Now the reason that we give them primate pellets is because these guys are used to a lot of vitamin D, and the typical Great British weather, they can become deficient in this country, so the primate pellets are fortified with that vitamin D just to make sure that they're getting everything that they need. So these guys' favourite foods are blueberries, grapes and raspberries, which is what I'm sharing out with them now, but they also have banana, apple, sweet potato, carrots, corn on the cob. You name it, these guys get it, but the only thing we don't feed them is citrus fruit. And that's because citrus fruit with these guys can contribute to an iron storage disease called hemochromatosis, which basically means they produce too much iron in the body. So we just find it better to avoid that altogether. So in the lemur society, it is a female-dominated society, so it means that girls rule and boys drool. So here with me now I have the two girls that we have here at Sewerby. Now then, out of the females then there's one alpha female, and this is Luna, who's sat here on my shoulder. Now Shy's over in the background. He's always quite shy, which is aptly named, and he sort of loiters in the background, but we always make sure that we share the food out evenly, because these guys in the wild, they would hog the food and then he'd get whatever is left over. So as these guys are a prey animal, the predators that they have in the wild are the fossors, that are a bit like a mongoose sort of type animal, buzzards and introduced predators like cats and dogs. They do have various sort of distress signals that they then vocalise to the rest of the group to let them know that there's a threat about. So for example, here at Sewerby, sometimes we get a lot of planes flying past, so they'll do a distress call then, and then if the seagull swoops too low, they will interpret that as a potential predator. And we also allow guide dogs in the zoo, so to them a guide dog can be a potential predator, so then they do a different distress call just to let everybody know that there could be a potential danger, and that's how they protect themselves in the wild. So I'll introduce you to the gang that we've got here at Sewerby. So here we have two girls and one boy. So this lemur here just behind me, this is Luna, she's the alpha female and she was born in 2011. And then these two are twins, and this is Maddie and Shy, and they were born in 2010. And they've been here since 2012. We had this enclosure specially built for them, and they arrived and they were born at Lincolnshire Wildlife Park. So unfortunately for these guys, they are endangered in the wild like a lot of the lemur species, and the main reason for that is habitat destruction. So a lot of farmers are poaching the land and taking away their natural habitat. Also the illegal pet trade. Now some of you might recognise these guys from the film Madagascar. Now these are the King Julians, and we all love the film, but unfortunately as a result of that there became a big demand for these guys, and you can often find a lot of them are now in UK collections across the country. And then another reason is introduced predators. So as people have moved into Madagascar, they've then fetched animals like cats and dogs that would predate upon these guys. So breeding programs and conservation is really important for these, just to try and rebuild the numbers. The population is decreasing in Madagascar every single day, and it is on the decline.